Distorted Wish, Chapter 3. Just Another Kid. The boy in the mirror wasn't Adrien. He had to wave his fingers in front of the mirror a few times to convince himself that this was indeed a mirror showing his own reflection and not some other boy's image. 4 sharpened canines as if he had pried open a stray cat's mouth instead of his own. Golden tan skin and messy golden hair, not the sun-starved pale and platinum blonde that featured in so many magazines. His outfit hadn't changed, still pieces from the latest Gabrielle holiday line that Natalie had given him to subtly advertise. His coat was white, but he felt as if he was still wearing the black suit of Chat Noir, as if he had thrown his civilian clothes on top. At least the green sheen from his mask hadn't bled into the white of his eyes. As he followed Alia along the streets of Paris, rolling the stubby form of his baton in his hands, he noticed the lack of attention. Eyes glossed over him. Glances didn't double back. Nobody saw Adrien Agreste. To everyone passing by, he was just another kid. He didn't mind. He didn't feel much like Adrien right then. More like an unlucky black cat. He brushed his coat pocket. Instead of a phone, Plagg took up that cozy niche, sleeping. Fortunately or unfortunately, Adrien's phone was in his bag back at school. He'd have to ask the black Kwame about everything later. Stuck midway through the transformation sounded like Plagg's doing. Alia's voice broke through his thoughts. This is the place. Right, the bakery. He had come by Marinette's place a few times, in both guises, albeit more often from unconventional directions as Chat Noir. Adrien came as a classmate and tentative friend. Chat Noir confided his emotions in Marinette under the stars. Usually I'm entering buildings from windows or the roof, he commented. Going in through the front like a civilian feels boring. Now he came to Marinette as the third person. Unless he revealed himself. That was the thought he stuck on as he went inside, Alia's curls bouncing as she went straight past the counter. Bonjour, Madame and Monsieur Dupain-Cheng. We're headed up to see Marinette. Before she could go very far, they both called to a halt. Now, hold on, you two. Alia backtracked the couple of steps down. Yes, Madame Dupain-Cheng? Chat turned to look at Madame Dupain-Cheng, and the gentle smile on her face made him pause, rocking back on his heels. He almost missed her question. Is this a new friend? Alia answered before Chat could get his tongue to work. This is Allard. He goes to that other school over the Seine, she introduced him. I thought he could hang out with us today since his parents are busy with stuff. Father, Chat blurted out, correcting that small detail. Alia shot him a curious look. I live with my father. He's pretty busy lately. I don't want to be in his way. Marinette's mother nodded. You two go on. Just call if you need anything. Yes, ma'am. Alia took his arm, yanking him past to a door leading to a living room. He glanced back to the two adults, searching for something that said his cover had been blown, but found no recognition in their eyes. The door swung shut, leaving the bakery behind. Marinette, we're coming up! Alia called as she raced up the stairs, knocking on the trapdoor on the ceiling. Someone above flipped it open, and Alia climbed up. Marinette's voice drifted down. So what's this about a favor, Alia? Chat Noir poked his head in through the trapdoor after Alia, and Marinette's eyebrows went out. You said this was Ladybug stuff, Alia, she said, suspicion in her voice. It is. And this, she said, gesturing grandly to Chat, is Chat Noir. He obliged with a grand bow in return. Enchantée, princess. Marinette's eyes widened before narrowing, skeptical. Really, Alia? Is this like when you suspected Chloe? She stood up, approaching Chat, apology written all over her face. Listen, if Alia just caught you on the scene, or if you were cosplaying as Chat Noir, I'm really sorry for her dragging you. He raised his hand, stopping her. Quick question. Do you recognize me? He had to know. Marinette blinked. No, not really. She looked him over again, up and down, searching for something familiar. Her eyes lingered on the nondescript Gabrielle tag on his coat pocket. Should I? You're not in any of my classes. A feeling of elation shot through him along with relief, and he couldn't help the grin that came to his face. The cat is out of the bag, princess. I'm Chat Noir. Marinette's jaw dropped. She spluttered, then twirled on Alia. Why come to me? Girl, I've got 3 siblings, Alia pointed out. There isn't enough room in my apartment. Just look at this. She waved her arms around, emphasizing the space. You've got enough room to hide both superheroes of Paris, with enough to spare for them to practice those crazy stunts they do jumping around the city. Hey, Chat interrupted, enjoying himself too much to be upset. I can be a good kitty. Give me a patch of sunlight and I'll nap until sundown. Marinette glanced between them, her eyes wide. Enough room for what? Then, narrowing her eyes, she zeroed in on the baton in his hand. Her tone turned accusing, confident in a way he rarely saw the shy, meek girl at school. "How do I know you're Chat Noir? The superheroes have run into imposters before." Alia sighed, her shoulders slumping. She stepped in between the two. "MariChat, I saw him transform. Don't you trust my word?" "No, Alia, I trust you. Ladybug and Chat Noir have never revealed their identities before." "It's fine," Chat cut in, grinning wider, although it felt tight this time. Transforming wouldn't hurt anything. If he ended up as Adrien when the suit fell again, well, that solved one problem while creating another. "Relax, I can prove it. All I need is some camembert." Alia raised an eyebrow. "What does cheese have to do with this?" But it clicked for MariChat, evidently. "Camembert, coming right up." She hurried down the trapdoor. Chat winced when he heard her slip a few steps on her way down. "I'm okay." Alia and Shaz exchanged glances. MariChat stumbled over herself when she returned to the room. She was out of breath, but her expression was determined as she held out the cheese. "Sorry, we didn't have any camembert. Is Brie okay?" Chat took the cheese, not sure if he should be thanking everything above that he wasn't subject to a smell as fierce a smell as camembert. It should be. "Plagg, time to wake up and eat." He waved the hunk of cheese around his coat pocket, trying to lure out Plagg. Stinky cheese was still stinky cheese. "Plagg?" MariChat echoed. "Plagg?" Alia repeated, confused and more than a little skeptical. "What kind of name is Plagg?" Shaz shrugged. "It's a Kwame's name." He gently nudged the bulge in the coat pocket, and both girls stilled at the replying hiss. "He's just being grumpy. Well, he's like this most of the time, but... Come on, Plagg, I need you right now." "Okay, this is getting weird," Alia said. "Why do you need this Kwame thing to convince MariChat? Can't you just transform to convince her?" I can't really..." Shad gestured vaguely. "It's not that easy. This little guy does most of the work. All my power comes from Plagg. I just make puns." He gingerly pulled the Kwame out of his pocket and cupped Plagg in his hand, doing his best not to disturb the sleeping Kwame. Immediately, Alia and MariChat were all over Plagg, rushing forward to get better looks, and Shan winced at the identical squeals of cuteness. Plagg rolled over in his hand, trying to cover his ears. "So does Ladybug have one of these as well?" Alia asked, the light bulb over her head sparking as she connected the dots. "Her power comes from a tiny ball of cuteness?" Shao wasn't sure how to respond to that cute comment. "Yeah, that's how our powers work. When they get too tired, we can't transform." Plagg stirred, opening one eye to glare at the rude interruption to his sleep. That interruption being cheese, however, he perked up, but that didn't infuse him with enough life and energy as much as a transformation. He rolled over to latch onto the treat and lazily munched on it, putting up with the 3 humans staring at him while he ate. "I don't think he's going to transform me this time. Sorry, ladies." His tongue felt twisted in his mouth. If he could just transform, Plagg might be able to fix whatever went wrong. But right then, he would be transforming in front of Alia and MariChat, outing his real identity to people who knew how to make life harder for him with that knowledge. However, going back to life as Adrien would have meant being able to go home and go back to school the next day like normal. He ignored the part of him that sighed at the idea of going back to an empty house. "That's good. MariChat chuckled nervously. "I wouldn't want my parents overhearing something like that, or walking in and seeing you as Chat Noir, or..." Alia put a hand on her friend's shoulder. "She's saying it's fine, Ella. I think she's convinced." MariChat coughed, bringing them back. "And there's also the trapdoor," she noted, glancing back to it. At any point, her parents might pop in to check up on the 3. Shaz sat on the couch, still frowning at the black Kwame in his hands. Plagg rubbed his eyes and dropped the cheese when he caught sight of his wielder's face. He picked it back up, clutching it to his chin like some precious gem, but Shad didn't miss the reaction. Not even his Kwame recognized him. He sighed and gently set Plagg down on a throw pillow. Finishing off the cheese, Plagg snuggled into the pillow and dozed back to sleep, a few specks of cheese sticking to his whiskers. "He's really tired out," Alia commented, still looking at Plagg as if he was an adorable kitten. "I'm sure he'll be fine after a cat nap." MariChat stepped away, gesturing Alia over. She glanced at Shah. "I just need to talk to Alia for a minute." They moved to the other end of the room, speaking in hushed tones. He heard them loud and clear, but kept his eyes on Plagg, one finger stroking over the Kwame's back. One more trait carried over from Chat Noir to this half-transformation. "Why did you bring him here? Why couldn't you have just left him alone?" MariChat whispering in that frantic panic she always used with Alia when she was nearby. A pause before Alia spoke. "We need to talk. Alia doesn't really have anywhere to go right now." MariChat's voice was skeptical. "Yeah? I still don't trust him. What did he tell you?" Alia sighed. "I thought you believed he was Chat Noir, superhero of Paris?" Ladybug's partner? Yeah, but what's this about? You mentioned you couldn't have him at your house, and why doesn't he have anywhere to go? She asked, repeating Alia's words back at her in a question. Do you really want him to stay at my house for a few days? Maybe a week. Mari, we couldn't leave him outside. It's only going to get colder out, and schools are closing soon for the holidays. Otherwise, I'd tell him to hide out in his school's theater or something. I'm not about to let Chat Noir freeze on the streets of Paris in winter. A week? My parents aren't going to let a boy I just met stay over for a week. You won't know until you ask. Besides, we aren't lying when we say he's a friend who we've known for a while. Why can't he go home? That's Gabrielle clothing he's wearing. He probably has enough pocket change in his wallet alone to get a hotel room for the night. Chef finally spoke up, commenting, You know I can hear you, right? They stopped and both looked at him, cringing. Super hearing, huh? Come on, Marinette, let's go downstairs. Chat idly pet Plagg with 2 fingers. Once he was sure the girls had disappeared downstairs, though, he snuck over to the trap door. With one last glance to check on Plagg, he pulled it open. Just a crack. He probably shouldn't have been eavesdropping, but he couldn't resist the temptation. They're talking about me, anyway, he reasoned with himself, then fell quiet as he heard Marinette's voice. I just think there's something suspicious about his story and needing a place to stay. His ears perked up. Marinette, I was scared he was about to break into tears at the cafe. He woke up concussed, confused, and panicking that I'd share his secret with the world. He's an anxious mess. Cher's mind came to a halt at that. Anxious mess? Maybe a little stressed. But that had to be expected with a childhood career of modeling. I really don't think he has a good home life. He told me his father isn't very supportive of what he does. He heard nothing, then a defeated sigh. Fine, I'll ask my parents, but you owe me for this. Just make sure he doesn't skip out on that interview he promised me. Wait, that cafe questioning hadn't been the interview? Maybe she meant a video-recorded interview. What? Marinette sighed. All right, let's just do this first. Chat strained his ears, but heard nothing clearly after the sound of the door shutting. Reluctantly, he closed the trapdoor and retreated back to the couch, to Plagg's side. I hope you have some answers for this when you wake up, he murmured. He laid back on his back, spinning his baton in his hands above him. His father would probably notice. Eventually. As soon as Natalie and the gorilla gave in and admitted they'd lost him, he had a winter shoot scheduled for a holiday edition of a magazine, complete with fake snow. He could probably push off until tomorrow morning to show up out of nowhere. After that, his father's reaction would probably be to lock him up in his room and ban him from going to school for a month or 2. Somehow, he didn't want this strange situation to end. Of course he's welcome to stay. Dinner's in a few hours. We'll set out an extra plate. Marinette's jaw dropped at her mother's answer. Alia shot her told-you-so look, but something wasn't right about this boy. His claims to be her superhero partner didn't add up, even taking into account Chat Noir's tendency to dramatize and turn everything into a joke, things she hadn't had a chance yet to ask Tiki about. Her first instinct was that she'd been found out, that this Aller somehow knew her secret. Marinette, he's your friend. I thought you wanted to help him. As long as you two don't stay up too late and don't lock any doors, I think they'll be fine, Alia cut in, saving Marinette from the awkwardness. Marinette's too obsessed with fashion model Adrien Agreste to look at any other boys twice. Alia, squeaked Marinette, her face flushed. Even if she knew her parents had no doubt seen all of the Adrien pictures pinned and taped around her room, there was the principle of the thing. Her mother laughed and thankfully didn't bring up that little detail. He has to call his father and let him know where he is tonight. And focus on your homework. There are spare linens in the closet. Marinette was already on her way, escaping the conversation with a burning face, Alia right behind her. I keep telling you, your parents are the nicest people I've ever met, Alia insisted as they ducked out of the bakery again. I'm still not sure I trust him, Marinette said. Just something about him feels off to me. Let's just try one night, okay? 1, Alia offered. Then if you go missing or end up in a ditch tomorrow morning, I'll give the Ladybug and real Chat Noir the heads up that there's a fake Chat Noir on the loose. Very funny. But thanks. They both went up the trapdoor to find Aller just as they had left him. Alia was the first to say something. Do you do that all the time? I guess it makes sense that you and Ladybug would have to practice a ton to be able to do those fancy tricks in battle. That drew Marinette's attention to the baton, twirling in Aller's hands. It seemed so effortless, and an action she had seen her Chat Noir repeat over and over, even in battle. Ladybug had done it with similar makeshift weapons, but MariChat could only successfully twirl things as small as a pen. Even then, it was usually a matter of time before her poor hand-eye coordination hurt her in the face with it. Alia and Aller were talking, but she didn't hear them, her mind whirling. The miraculous powers didn't work that way. When Ladybug took off the mask and went back to being MariChat, nothing carried over. None of the dexterity in throwing her yo-yo to catch on to something to swing from, none of the muscle memory of a credible fighting style, and none of the fitness to do a backflip properly. She didn't even get the yo-yo, which made the scene all the more incredible. Miraculous powers did not work like that. My mom said you could stay, but she wants you to call your dad to tell him where you are, she said, interrupting the strange sight of Aller showing up Chat Noir's baton tricks to Alia. You can sleep on that couch. I have some spare travel-sized things you can borrow for the week, she explained. She had no intention of letting him stay more than one night. Aller sighed, but it was marred by a grimace. Can I borrow one of your phones, he asked, and flipped open the communicator on his baton. This thing only connects me to Ladybug. MariChat hesitated, and Alia rolled her eyes, pulling out her own phone. Here, but I have to get home soon. Aller said a quick thanks, taking the phone, and flashed them both an innocent smile as he climbed down the trapdoor. Suspicious, but not enough to have MariChat running after him. Really, MariChat, he's not going to bite you. I know, it's just... But she couldn't explain how she knew so much about the miraculous powers. Ugh! She buried her face in another pillow and glared at the sleeping Kwame. She would have to somehow get answers out of that one later. And this wasn't miraculous, more like an akuma. One that had stolen Chat Noir's Kwame, or something that looked like a Kwame. The minutes passed in silence, and MariChat was still lost in her thoughts when Aller returned. He passed the phone back to Alia. Bonne chance, she told Aller on her way out. Don't keep MariChat up too late. I need her well and rested for school tomorrow. Aye, aye, Captain. MariChat gave one more concerned glance to Plagg before sitting up and giving a tight smile to her new house guest. An akuma that just wanted to get away from his family for a while, with a penchant for Chat Noir. Thanks. Sorry I'm imposing on you like this. I know this isn't what you'd expect from one of the local superheroes. It's fine, MariChat said a little too quickly. That line of thinking hit too close to her own thoughts. When she first put on the earrings and donned the mask, she had no confidence. That she was definitely the wrong person for the job. Those ideas still lingered, no matter how many akuma she cleansed. About that. Why didn't you go to Ladybug about this? You two are always together. Any akuma impersonating Chat Noir was on a countdown as soon as they ran into Ladybug, and suddenly had something to fear. But Aller had an answer for that. We keep our civilian identities secret from each other. It's her rule, and, well, she disappeared after the akuma earlier today. I couldn't leave Alia without making sure she didn't advertise my identity across Paris, anyway. He shrugged, batting the baton between his hands. A good excuse. I'll go look for a toothbrush. I know we have spares somewhere. MariChat glanced over her shoulder as she headed into the bathroom. Allard's attention was on the black Kwame, almost as if he was genuinely concerned for the small creature, but not suspicious. Once the door was closed behind her, MariChat opened her purse, and a dizzying red zoomed out. What do you think, Tiki? She asked, keeping her voice quiet. Something just doesn't feel right. Chat Noir wouldn't do this. He's not like this. He doesn't look like the right Chat Noir, Tiki replied, wringing her tiny hands together. But he has Plagg. That's Chat Noir's Kwame. So he's telling the truth about that. Do you think Hawkmoth finally got one of us? An akuma that really wants to be Chat Noir? They had faced an akuma who pretended to be another miraculous superhero. They had faced a carbon copy of Chat Noir. They had faced a wannabe Ladybug. An akuma kidnapping Chat Noir's Kwame wasn't so out of the realm of possibility. She could figure out Alia's claims later. I have to talk to Plagg. MariChat, you have to get Plagg alone. He'll know what's going on. Is he... MariChat hesitated. I'm sure Plagg's okay, Tiki. He's probably just tired and hasn't had time to recharge after the battle earlier, she reassured her Kwame. Here's the plan. At dinner time, I'll make sure Allard leaves Plagg in my room, and you stay behind to talk to Plagg, okay? She tucked Tiki away in her purse again before taking a deep breath. She could do this, even with a Kwame thief in her bedroom. I knew he didn't feel right, she muttered under her breath, opening the cabinet. She grabbed a toothbrush still in its packaging and toothpaste before exiting the bathroom. "Hey, I found the spare toothbrush. It was hiding in the back of the cupboard." It was going to be a long evening. End of Chapter 3.